Hello friends and enemies, welcome back to another installment of Weekly Allowance, the only toy review channel on the internet where the host reviews figures in a closet under the stairs in a very Harry Potter-like situation. At any time during this review, you may hear a strange noise in the background, and that is the heater running. We're in the middle of an Arctic blast, baby! Anyway, today we are looking at Mezco 1/12 Collective Doc Nocturnal. This is the second version. This one is a little bit of a different take on the character. We'll have the original with us to compare. I don't really know how to differentiate them though. Like, this one doesn't have a specific name. Like the Mezco Nosferatu we looked at last time, one was Silent Screamers and one was Symphony of Horror. Both Doc Nocturnals are just Doc Nocturnal, except one is a beefcake, but we'll get more into that later. I really enjoy the box for this. Not only the illustrations, which are fantastic, of course, but the feel of it. It's a really nice matte. Of course, you've got the shiny Mezco exclusive up there. There's a woman involved this time. A woman! A woman in my fanciful action figure story? I don't think so, Jack. There she is again. And an illustration of him fighting a man who spits bird snakes out of his mouth. Seems like that would be an easy foe to vanquish, but what do I know? So let's go ahead and open it up. I had forgotten that in the previous, Rumble Society character releases, they came with this wraparound illustration around the clamshell. It's like a kind of a, not really a diorama piece, because if you had this in the background and then you also had Doc Nocturnal, the figure, in front of it, it'd be like him posing in front of an illustration of himself, which, I mean, he's a pulp action character, so that's not completely off base. Once again, a very nice illustration. Very simple, but really nice color work. There's something to be said for simple line work and then knowing what you're doing with color. So on the inside of the box, sorry that it's a little cramped in here. It's hard to show the whole thing at once. You've got some kind of another scene with a mad scientist, and Doc Nocturnal's coming to save the day, saving his lady friend. She's popping up all over this packaging in various states of peril. There she is again on the side. I'm not a huge fan of the damsel in distress trope. I understand, though. I understand it. Especially for something like this, which is based off, like old pulp heroes and stuff like that. That was extremely prevalent at the time. I'm going to go on a very brief tangent before I move on to the figure, and I'm so sorry I'm doing this because I know that this is the last thing you want to hear about right before I unbox a figure. They came out with their first female Rumble Society character, and she looks really cool. I think we passed on her, and the reason is that the other Rumble Society characters, like this guy, are monstrous in some way. They are like creatures in some fashion. Robot creature, shark robot creature, undead man creature. And the female character, Tangerine, she was cool, but she was just like a regular lady. She just was a regular lady spy. Make her into a creature and then you got me. I really would have liked her to be a little bit more interesting, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'll stop that tangent now because I know that's not why you guys are here. These things come with a lot of stuff. It's honestly a little bit daunting at times to review. There's just a lot of it. It all has special names that I don't know. I love that the accessories are in their own little tiny clamshells inside the larger clamshell. That way they don't immediately fall out when I open up the top, which is a problem I have frequently. Whose fault is that? It's mine, I know. Let's look at this guy. Ooh, he comes with plastic on his face. I know that that's there for protection, but it looks kind of like just part of the character design. Very creepy. It's pretty cold, so I'm gonna be gentle with all these things. All right, so we're thinking that this Doc Nocturnal is a mummy of some sort, right? So with the first release of Doc Nocturnal, he came with a comic book, and this one did too, and I'll get into that in a moment. But in the comic, it was revealed to be more or less a bunch of kids, kind of telling a campfire story about Doc Nocturnal, what they thought Doc Nocturnal was like. So they had the version that release was based on. They had this version, I think, a more buff Doc Nocturnal. They just had a few different types, and the kids were saying what they thought that Doc Nocturnal was actually like. I can't really remember, but I think there was some theorizing on what was beneath the mask, and they never really showed. So I don't think there is a canon Doc Nocturnal. I think it's all just pulp tales, pulp fiction tales. So in the fiction of this particular one, he's a an undead zombie man. They call him the monster who fights monsters. I guess you would consider a undead zombie man a monster. I don't really consider mummy zombies monsters, but I guess they are. I guess if they're not monsters, then what would they be? I don't know. But I am surprised to like open this and right off the bat see an unmasked head, because the other one didn't come with any unmasked heads. It was all the mask, and it never showed what his face looked like or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and unbox everything, and then we will look at the figure and accessories. All right, let's take a look at him. Very different in shape than the previous Doc Nocturnal. Let's take a look at him. They're about the same height, but this Doc Nocturnal has a very obvious exaggerated mask on that makes his head look very large. And other than that, he's very thin. He is a svelte character. This one is thicker. This one is more of a, I guess what you would expect from a classic superhero type character. Though to be honest, I prefer this design, not only because he's a little bit more fun to play around with, but because it's just a little bit different, you know? Get some scrawny guys out there kicking butt. So here's a better look at that head. Little ear holes. It's kind of cute. He's like a forlorn looking zombie man. He hits all the same beats as the previous Doc Nocturnal. He's got the color scheme. He's got the skull and spiderweb motif. Got random studs on his outfit. He comes with similar gadgets and weaponry. The other one has this little watch as well. This one is much more tactical. The other one is a bit more, his costume leans more toward the medieval, like a tunic type deal. This one's kind of tunic-y too, but it's a lot more akin to body armor in some places, though he does have these like pauldron-like shoulder pads, which is cool. But yeah, he's got the same like legging type situation. I don't think these are meant to be pants. They're meant to be leggings like we saw in the Nosferatu figure and in the last Doc Nocturnal figure. Is it a Mezco without boots that I want? Great boots. I need them. Let's look at articulation really quick and then get to accessories because there's a lot to go through. His neck is pretty thick. He does have a neck joint, but it's a little bit, a little lacking. You can turn it, but the neck itself is so thick that you can't really do too much with it. You can get some curious tilts out of him. It's like Curious George, but not a monkey. Rotate. Really nice movement on the elbow. You can get it pretty close to the upper arm. Pretty standard wrist articulation. Some crunch. I'm being careful like I always am with Mezcos because I don't want to stress the cloth goods. I wouldn't say they're fragile, but this material isn't something you want to like really put through the ringer. Out, back, leg articulation is pretty standard for a Mezco. Really good knee bend there. You can definitely get some dynamism out of that. Joint is a little chunky. I think it's just kind of stuck because it's been cold. You've got back and forth and then rock. Nothing crazy in the articulation department except for those elbows and knees are really good. Elbows and knees. I want to go ahead and put his skull face on because while this head is cool, it doesn't scream Doc Nocturnal to me. It's that skull face that really I've come to associate with him. So this guy is just a guy. I don't know that guy. Who is he? Luckily, we have two skull masks, and it looks like they go on top of the head. That's interesting. I thought that they were just completely different heads. That's cool. Because like I said, in the other release, it's oversized. So that's not the head. It's just obviously a mask that is over a head, but there's no sculpted head underneath. It's just that headpiece. So these go on top of the head. You've got a pretty what you would expect from a skull mask. Is it made out of a real skull? It could be. I mean, this guy deals with all sorts of like necromantic vagaries, so I don't see why he couldn't have a skull mask made out of a real skull. Very nice sculpting and paint on that, of course. Did we expect anything less? This one is a bit more alien. It's got some grooves in it. It's like a xenomorph hybrid skull. Yeah, I can't tell if it's meant to be like just kind of a creature, like a half-human creature, or maybe some kind of ritualistic carving. I think it is just the skull of some kind of creature. It's got a lot more pitting. Yeah, both very cool. Let's go with the classic. I was not expecting that it would be an actual helmet type situation. It's a little tight so far. I am afraid of kind of ruining this head. I mean, since that's the case, I might want to leave the mask off for the review so it doesn't get in the way of all the other accessories. But I don't know. We'll see what we can do. We'll just try it. Oh, I didn't even notice this. But this was in the comic, I think. The other comic that came with the first release is this plug thingy. Oh, does it come out? It comes out. That's, oh God, that's so tiny. I feel like I'm going to lose that for sure. This might have to be removed for that mask to be put on. But it's so little. I'm afraid. I know I'm going to lose it. Where can I put this where it is safe? God, that's the tiniest figure accessory that I've ever unboxed. There we go. All right. Put the hood on. It requires a little bit of moving around because you want his eyes to be visible, at least those red irises. And the mask doesn't really want to sit right away. But yep, this is much more in line with Dog Nocturnal. Oversized mask. This time you've got the red eyes peeking through. A tiny accessory that I don't know what to do with. He does come, like many Mezcos, with this nifty bag, this very convenient bag. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here and make sure it is, there we go, make sure it's zipped up tight. You're not going anywhere, buddy. You guys might not know this, but when I'm doing reviews, I like to drink tea. So I got a nice cup of something called Golden Monkey. Typically not a fan of monkeys, but this tastes good. Not a fan of monkeys, but I do like gold. You guys can remember that if you're looking for something to get me on my birthday. So a million years ago when I reviewed the first Dog Nocturnal, I did like a bit where I did like an old-timey radio announcer voice with like old-timey music playing in the background where I went through all his accessories in that voice, you know, kind of just reading through it like a pulp fiction novel. But I think we've grown as a channel since then, and I think we've moved beyond such gimmicks. You know, I'm a grown woman, and there's no room in the year 2025 for such childish nonsense. Welcome back to this week's episode of Doc Nocturnal's Noirmery. That's the word armory plus noir. Doc Nocturnal's back to kick the forces of evil right in the ass. Emerging from the depths of his nocturnal tower once more, the monster that hunts monsters has returned. Ready to confront any danger lurking in the shadows, Doc Nocturnal is armed with an array of weapons and tools. His trusted sidearm, the ferryman. If you thought one ferryman was good, two is even better. After all, the good doctor has two hands, and when he's not using them to lovingly grasp his lady friend's waist, he's holding guns akimbo. The folding Tommy gun, for when you're big on bullets, but tight on space. Iron grapple claws. They're iron, and they grapple. Hades Inferno grenades, which I'm not taking out of the plastic yet because they're very small. The formidable X-13 portable chemical cannon. Necro-optic goggles to peer beyond the fabric of this reality. And a breather helmet because I suppose, despite being an undead mummy, he still has to breathe. All this and more can be found in Doc Nocturnal's Noirmery. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, he comes with a lot more than that, actually. A slew of hands. Just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pairs of hands. That is so many hands. That's a hand for every occasion. I don't want to hear about you guys running out of hands or not having enough hands, because this is hands for days. You got fists, trigger fingers, holding things hands, more trigger fingers, flat palms. Looks like these are relaxed hands and reaching hands is what I'm choosing to call all these. In addition to the hands he already has. Looks like these are various gadgets to go on his belt. I think this is part of the claw thingy. I think this goes on his watch. This, I think is a gun shooting effect. You also have more gun shooting effects. I think this one is meant to be launched from that chemical cannon. It's got a green tinge to it, a little chemical cartridge. You've got a spread of 3 bullets. I believe that is Tommy gun style. This looks like an explosion, a large shot of some sort. And a tiny bullet making a big blast. Yeah, and here are the 2 ferryman guns. I'm sorry for keeping this stuff in the clamshells. It's just like all so small that I don't want to lose it. But let me illustrate to you. You can put these little slugs in here. If you can peer past my my fingers, this should lift up. Oh, or come off completely. I don't think it's supposed to come off completely, but those pegs are very small. We should be able to just insert it back in. Put that in there. It doesn't really serve a purpose because you can't really see it, but I guess it's cool. Yeah, here's that gun in more detail. Got his insignia on it. Here is the other one. I think it lifts up the other direction. Oh, it folds in half, kind of. You can put a bullet in there. At least that one, when it's in there, you can kind of see it. You can't really see it on the other one. So there are your two 2 ferryman guns. Which way did these go? There's obviously a top and a bottom, but I don't know which is which. I think this is it. It says the goggles fit over the masked heads, but I'm not finding that to be the case. Maybe if I do it from a different angle? Maybe you have to take the head off and put them on that way. Looks kind of goofy and it doesn't really fit. You can tell I don't really have it on there really well, but I think the goggle part needs to be spaced apart a little bit more because they don't really fit his eye holes. It does make me think of Manfred. I feel like every time I do a review, I talk about video games at some point, but I've been playing Dragon Age Veilguard. Let me tell you, it does have some faults, but I'm enjoying it a lot, actually. And there's the cutest little, like, skeleton guy in there named Manfred. He's so cute. He has, like, big green gems for eyes, and all he does is hiss and serve tea. And he's adorable, and I love him. So this is meant to go over the unmasked head, actually. So let's pull this off. Ooh, am I going to be able to get this mask off? I hope this head underneath is hardy, because there's going to be a lot of pulling of it. All right. You've got to kind of push down his hood. It's easier to do this when you're not trying to do it in front of a camera in a very cramped space. Now that looks cool. That looks pretty awesome. Ooh, especially with the cannon. Yes. So this thing has an arm brace. Let's see if I can... How do I do this? Ooh. I just dropped that and it made a really loud sound and I startled myself. It's really difficult to get this hand on with this brace in the way. It unlocks. That is very, very helpful. All right, there we go. I've got the stabilizing thing on. It was a bit difficult. Like I said, it's easier if you're doing it like a normal person would and not having to do it in front of a camera. Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle when you're having to do it from afar, but it looks really good. So about the Tommy gun, it does fold, and I reckon you can attach it to his harness once it's all folded up. Pretty neat. Saves on space. Yeah, you've got some Hades Inferno grenades, nitramite capsules. This Iron Talon grappling claw is this. This is supposed to be in a compact form. And I guess this is meant to plug into his belt. So there's a lot to kind of go over still with this. Oh, first of all, I do want to say, I mean, this should be old hat to anyone who knows Mezco, but he does come with a base, very cool looking base, and a stand. In here, you also get a cloak and a harness, I think. Like I said, Mezco reviews are kind of daunting just because there's so much to go over. Okay, so we'll look at that in a moment. Time to undo everything I've done to explore another avenue. Something poetic about it. There's an entire instruction sheet on how to put... Oh god. There's an entire instruction sheet on how to put this harness on him. We'll say, for someone with such, like, big, chunky combat boots, he doesn't want to stand. Probably user error. He also wants to blow my camera exposure out for some reason. So I'm going to do all this off screen because it's going to be impossible for me to do this on screen. Okay, it was a bit of a chore getting these pieces on, getting the harness on, getting everything attached. It's hard to see, but there's some very, very tiny little attachments where you slip in these buckles. And that's the same for these holsters and things too. And it can be very difficult. The holes are very, very small. What I did is kind of like pinch it together and it kind of widened the opening a little bit to slide these in. I don't even know if I have any of this stuff in right. It's kind of laying funny. It's not really laying in the way that I think it's supposed to, but this is the best I got for now. All right, before we continue, I want to make it clear that this is how the holsters are supposed to attach to the harness, with the straps flat against his body. They will continue to not be flat against his body for the rest of this review, but I don't want anyone coming after me in the comments being like, of course they don't look right or don't fit right. You didn't put them on right. So don't come at me in the comments. I know. There are these loops. You can also put the grenades and the capsules and things like that. I didn't. Just, I don't want to lose anything right now, but that's what those are for. If you have larger fingers or have unsteady fingers, I can't imagine that this will be easy. I think it will be very difficult. So if there is something you can get to like wedge in those tiny little holes in these little straps, like a sewing needle or something like that, just kind of work it open a little bit. That might help because I have pretty small fingers and I'm relatively dexterous. even though my hands tend to shake a lot, and I still struggled mightily. All right, so let's move on to this cloak. So before I put it on him, I want to talk a little bit about it. I think this is basically the pattern reused from their Batman figure. So that means it's the same cloak and it has the same problem, which is that only every other pleat is wired. So like this one is wired, but this second one isn't. This one's wired, this one's not. So on and so forth, which makes it lay a little bit funny. We watched a short review about the Batman cape and what he did to fix it, and what he did was just insert wire himself in these little pleats. Looks like it's simple enough to do. There's a little opening there. So just to illustrate, I've got a little bit of wire. I'm going to see if I can shove it in here. There we go. Be gentle so you don't rip the fabric accidentally. It shouldn't rip, but I can see things going wrong. All right, and then you'll snip that off, and then you will have a fully wired cape. So obviously I'm not going to do the whole thing right now. This was just kind of a demonstration, but the option is there if you want to do it. So the attachment point for this cloak is this skull insignia. So you're supposed to be able to remove it. It's difficult for me because my nails are pretty short. Another tiny piece that I think is going in the bag. Going in the bag. So I think his head has to come off for this one. Beware, because the part's falling off all over the place. This is supposed to plug into here, but does not fit well. It's another tiny piece that can get lost. I gotta say so far that this is a pretty frustrating figure. Like the figure itself is fine. It's just like all the accessories. It's a little bit too much. So this I heard is pretty frustrating too, is the attachment point for this cloak, putting it on the body, is this tiny little plastic piece. This is another off-camera moment because I don't think I'd be able to do this on camera. Let me see if I can plug it in. Okay, I'm worried it's going to pop out, and it kind of the cape kind of shoves his harness that I worked so hard to put on him away, and yeah, it came undone. It's just that this peg isn't very long, and then there's a lot of fabric buildup around it. So it's hard to get that in there. I can't imagine it's going to be easy, like posing the cape while making sure that that stays in there. Yeah, it just wants to come out, keeps wanting to come out. I can't think of a fix for that at this moment. So this is supposed to go on his belt. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the bag, in the small things bag, because it's another thing that just keeps popping off, and I'm worried that I'll lose. So that's 3 things in the bag. But yeah, you can see that cloak fits a little awkwardly just because of the lack of wires in every single pleat. Let's look at some comparisons. Of course, we have him with the regular Doc Nocturnal, as we covered. I said earlier that they were the same height, but this guy looks... Maybe I had him a little bit slumped over earlier, because right now he's looking taller. This one is much smaller, actually. Here we have the Mezco Nosferatu. We just looked at him. If you are interested in seeing that review, it is the one just before this. An excellent monster for him to fight. Of course, they're both Mezcos, so they scale really well together. They look great together. Nosferatu's got a little bit of height on him, but Doc Nocturnal is much thicker. I'm actually going to go ahead and put him on the stand for the rest of the comparisons because he keeps wanting to fall over. Here is the NECA American Werewolf in London werewolf. That's another one that scales really well and would be a cool fight to see. Here is the Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons Owl Bear. A little bit of a cartoonier vibe, but it is a monster. A monster that this monster can hunt. We have 2 skeletons, Mythic Legion skeleton and the Fouche skeleton. So it's skeleton versus skeleton, even though he's not technically a skeleton, he's just appropriated skeleton culture. That's an entirely different discussion. Here is a Hasbro, I think, Power Rangers figure. It's a bird monster thingy. Another great monster to fight. We have a lot of monster figures, and they're all covered with either cat or dog fur. Somehow everything in this house ends up covered in fur. And here we have Phantom, another pulp hero. The fashion here is very different. You've got to respect the confidence of a man who goes out in that getup. And I'm talking, of course, about Doc Nocturnal. Oh, before we end, there was a Vampire Hunter pack that the other Doc Nocturnal release came with, and it came with this head. Just want to see if this head will fit on this body, at risk of destroying all my hard work of getting that cape on. No, I mean, kinda, but it comes off really easily, so it doesn't really fit. Even with the stand, he doesn't want to stand up. Yeah, he's a little loose on this peg. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this figure comes with a comic book, as did the last one, and it is beautifully illustrated. Look at that painting on the front. Just lovely, lovely art within. His lady friend is being sacrificed to, looks like a kind of Lovecraftian cult. He shows up to save the day, as you do, and then you flip it around and you get the Decapod gang. Really cool illustrations. Just a really, really neat addition. Great artwork. I have some complaints about this figure, but my main complaint is not about this figure. It's about a figure we don't have. Frog Butler. Where is Frog Butler? From the minute I saw Frog Butler in the last Doc Nocturnal release, I was hoping that they would make a figure of him. Look at him, he is so cute and so dapper. I love him so much. Norm Marie. And also, he's got a Frog Butler. What? I need this character right now. How come he didn't come with Doc Nocturnal? And then my dreams came true and they showed a Frog Butler figure. There has been no word on if that is actually going to go into production, if it's going to be released, if I should give up my hopes and dreams of a Frog Butler figure. So my main complaint about this Doc Nocturnal figure is that it's not Frog Butler. It's a cool figure, but it is very frustrating. See, the skull popped out again. There's just so many like tiny parts to slot in and plug in, and then they don't want to stay put. The base figure, fine. Most of the accessories, fun. Like, this thing is crazy. I love it. Ooh, you gotta be careful with that peg, though. I mean, look at that. That is awesome. But, like, the smaller, like the harness and the holsters and all that stuff, even the opening guns, it's just like, it's too many small moving parts that weren't necessary, in my opinion. That, and I just don't like the design as much as this one. This one is, I think, perfect for me. This figure is just, it's simpler, it's more fun to play with. There's not as much going on, but it still feels generous, you know? Like, I remember when I was doing the review for this one, I had a lot of fun. I like this one a lot. This one I'm just not feeling as much. Of course, that is entirely my opinion. And if you like this figure, then that is great. If you like it and you have it, that's awesome. I'm glad you're having fun. And it's not like I don't like this figure. It's just, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. It's no Frog Butler. So as always, likes and subscribes are very much appreciated. Comments are more than welcome, and I will see you guys on the next one.